The Excalibur hurtled through the vast emptiness of warp space, its hull a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. A rectangular leviathan bristling with artillery cannons, flak turrets, missile launchers, and experimental heavy plasma weapons. Thick armor plating reinforced every inch of its frame, while newly developed adaptive shields shimmered faintly, ready for their first true test in battle. Inside the command deck, the atmosphere was electric with tension. Captain Isabella Moretti sat in the center of the bridge, her sharp eyes scanning the tactical displays. Around her, the crew worked with practiced precision, each focused on their role. Systems check. "I want every department ready before we drop out of warp," Captain Moretti commanded, her voice calm but firm. Her crew responded in rapid succession. "All departments standing by." "Systems green," Commander Boone said, his tone steady and reassuring. "Weapons fully loaded and ready." "Let's show these bastards what we're made of," Ramirez added, a hint of excitement in his voice. "Course locked, Captain." "Estimated arrival in 3 minutes," Navarro reported, his hands deftly navigating the helm controls. "Alliance fleet comms are spotty, Captain," Patel said, glancing at the scrambled data on his console. "We won't be able to integrate at this range. Picking up several Alliance distress signals at our destination." "Shield matrix optimal, Captain," Lynn's voice chimed in over the comms from engineering. "Adaptive systems engaged and ready to respond dynamically." "Enemy fleet composition is unclear," Carter added from the intelligence station. "They're unlike anything we've encountered before." Despite the urgency, the professionalism of the crew shone through. Years of training and shared experience had forged a team capable of meeting any challenge. The Excalibur was racing to the Vorsis star system, where an Alliance fleet had engaged an unknown hostile force. For years, humanity and the Alliance had maintained an uneasy peace, each respecting the other's boundaries. Their mutual agreement was simple: leave each other alone. But today, that agreement was shattered. The Alliance's desperate call for help spoke volumes about the threat they now faced. Captain Moretti rose from her chair, her gaze sweeping across the bridge. Her voice carried the weight of their mission as she addressed her crew. "We may not trust the Alliance, but this enemy threatens us all. Humanity's strength has always been its unity, its resilience. Today, we fight not just for survival, but to show the galaxy what we're made of. Prepare for battle." The hum of the Excalibur systems filled the command deck as Captain Isabella Moretti stood at the center of a large holographic tactical display. The glowing three-dimensional image depicted their approach to the Vorsis star system, markers representing ships shifting as the data updated in real time. Around her, the bridge crew worked with methodical precision, their faces illuminated by the soft light of their consoles. "Final combat readiness checks," Moretti ordered, her voice steady and commanding. "All departments standing by, Captain." "Systems green," Commander Boone replied from his station, his eyes fixed on the status monitors. "Warp trajectory locked. Estimated time to exit, 3 minutes," added Helmsman Navarro, his hands deftly adjusting the navigation controls. "Shield matrix stable. Adaptive systems fully engaged," Chief Engineer Lynn confirmed over the comm channel from deep within the engineering decks. The tension was palpable, a quiet intensity that filled the bridge as the Excalibur closed the distance to the battlefield. "Captain, we're in sensor range," Intelligence Officer Carter announced, his voice cutting through the silence. The holographic display flickered and shifted, the outline of the Vorsis star system now populated with dozens of blips representing ships. "Report," Moretti said, her eyes narrowing as she focused on the display. Carter's hands moved swiftly across his console, refining the data. "Both fleets detected. The Alliance fleet has taken significant losses. They're outnumbered 2-1 by the enemy." "And the command ship?" Moretti asked. Carter's expression darkened. under attack by a large enemy vessel. Their shields are beginning to fail. Moretti didn't hesitate. Helm, adjust our trajectory. Exit warp between the command ship and the enemy attacker. We're the shield now. Navarro's fingers flew over the controls, recalculating their approach. Course correction complete. Exiting warp in 10 seconds, Captain. The holographic display flared as the Excalibur exited warp in a brilliant cascade of light and energy. The massive dreadnought dropped into position with pinpoint precision, its bulk looming protectively between the Alliance command ship and the attacking enemy vessel. A barrage of enemy weapons fire slammed into the Excalibur's adaptive shields, the energy rippling across its surface like liquid light. "Shields holding steady," Lynn reported, her voice crackling over the comms. Moretti's gaze remained fixed on the holographic display, where the enemy vessel loomed menacingly. "Commander Boone, prepare a starboard broadside." Boone snapped into action. "Target the attacking ship. Open starboard broadside cannon doors. Prepare a single volley, tight spread." The holographic display updated as targeting markers locked onto the enemy vessel. On the ship's exterior, reinforced doors slid open along the starboard side, revealing the broadside plasma cannons. Each weapon hummed with energy as they charged, glowing with an intense blue light. "Broadside cannons locked and ready," Ramirez called out, his voice steady despite the tension. Boone turned to Moretti. "Ready to fire, Captain." Moretti gave a single nod. "Fire broadside." Boone relayed the command. "Unlock safeties and fire." 6 massive plasma bolts erupted from the Excalibur's broadside cannons, their brilliant light cutting through the darkness of space. Each bolt was a concentrated stream of destructive energy, designed to punch through shields and armor alike. The first bolt slammed into the enemy vessel, shattering its remaining shields. The second and third tore through its hull, exposing its inner decks to the vacuum of space. The fourth and final impact struck the ship's core, triggering a massive explosion that consumed the entire vessel. The holographic display flickered as the enemy marker disappeared, replaced by a cloud of debris. On the bridge, the crew watched in silence, the realization of their victory settling in. "Enemy vessel neutralized," Carter reported, his tone betraying a hint of relief. For a brief moment, the bridge was quiet, the crew sharing a collective sense of accomplishment. Captain Moretti allowed herself a small smile before turning her attention back to the display. "This is only the beginning," she said quietly, her voice resolute. The bridge aboard the Alliance command ship Resolute was a storm of noise and chaos. Admiral Tarek stood at the center, his hands gripping the edge of his console as he watched the unfolding battle. His fleet, once a symbol of the Alliance's strength, was now a fractured shadow of its former self, burning ships and scattered formations displayed on every screen. The enemy had been relentless. First, a border colony reduced to ash, then a trade port left in ruins. Finally, the frantic distress call from Viridia, a member world. It was cut off before they could respond. Tarek had been confident in his fleet, heavy cruisers supported by destroyer escorts. It should have been enough. It wasn't. "Admiral," a voice shouted, yanking him from his thoughts. "Enemy battleship targeting us." "Divert power to." The Resolute shuddered violently as the first volley slammed into their shields. Sparks erupted from consoles, and alarms blared across the bridge. "Shields down to 22% and falling." "Minor hull damage reported, Admiral." "We won't survive another hit." Tarek gritted his teeth, forcing himself to stand tall. His mind raced for options, but none would matter in the face of another direct hit. "Enemy weapons recharging." "Massive subspace inversion detected," another officer shouted, his voice filled with disbelief. The Admiral barely had time to process the words before the display lit up. The enemy battleship's energy ports flared brightly as it unleashed its next attack. Tarek closed his eyes, his thoughts drifting to his family. This is it. A flash of brilliant light consumed the bridge. For a moment, the crew was blinded, their voices raised in confusion and alarm. As the light faded, gasps spread across the room. "Admiral," one officer said, his voice trembling. "A massive vessel just appeared directly ahead of us." Tarek opened his eyes and turned to the main screen. There, dominating the void, was an enormous rectangular ship. Its black, monolithic hull shimmered faintly as it absorbed the enemy barrage, shielding the Resolute from certain destruction. "Identify that ship," Tarek barked. "Admiral," the sensor officer stammered. It's human." "The humans." Another officer cut in. "Massive energy surged from the human vessel. They're deploying weapons." The crew watched in awe as massive doors along the human ship's side slid open, revealing colossal plasma cannons. The enemy battleship, already preparing its next volley, had no chance to respond. The first blast struck the enemy ship's shields, overloading them in a single, blinding impact. The second and third bolts slammed into the hull, ripping it apart. The fourth and subsequent shots tore into the shattered remains, igniting its core, and setting off a brilliant explosion that lit up the darkness. Silence filled the bridge of the Resolute. The holographic displays glowed faintly, showing the remains of the enemy battleship drifting as debris. For a moment, no one spoke. "Admiral," the communications officer finally said, breaking the spell, "the human vessel is hailing us." Tarek straightened, his voice steady. "Put it through." The main display shifted to reveal a human female in a dark, crisp uniform. Her expression was calm but authoritative, her eyes sharp as they met his through the transmission. "Responding to general distress alert," she said evenly. Tarek gave a slight nod, composing himself. "This is Admiral Tarek of the Alliance flagship Resolute. On behalf of my fleet, we welcome your assistance." Captain Moretti nodded once. "We're not done yet, Admiral. Let's finish this fight, together." The transmission ended. Tarek turned to his crew, the weight of their survival giving him strength. "You heard her. Rally the fleet. We fight with the humans." The bridge came alive with purpose as officers called out orders and damage reports. For the first time in hours, hope was visible on every face. Outside, the Excalibur moved forward, its colossal weapons charging once more. The tide of battle had shifted. Humanity had arrived. The bridge of the Excalibur hummed with focused intensity. Captain Moretti stood at the center, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the chaotic battle ahead. Around her, the crew worked like a well-oiled machine, executing commands with precision. The massive Dreadnought glided forward, its dark hull reflecting the flashes of weapons fire across the void. As it passed the Alliance command ship, Moretti's voice cut through the tension. "Helm, bring us further into the engagement zone. Let's draw their attention." "Aye, Captain," Helmsman Navarro replied, his hands deftly adjusting the controls. Ahead, the enemy fleet began to react. Two battleships turned sharply, their weapon systems locking onto the Excalibur. "Captain," Intelligence Officer Carter reported, "two enemy battleships are targeting us. They're moving to attack from port and starboard." Moretti's lips curled into a determined smirk. "Let's show them what this ship can do. Tactical, prepare a firing solution for simultaneous broadside volleys. Target both battleships." Gunnery Officer Ramirez's fingers flew over his console. "Solution ready, Captain. Cannons are locked and loaded." "Release safeties. Fire," Moretti commanded. The Excalibur shuddered as its broadside plasma cannons unleashed their fury. On both sides of the ship, massive bolts of searing energy streaked through space. The first enemy battleship's shields crumbled under the impact, its hull exploding in a brilliant fireball. The second ship was torn apart, its remains drifting away as debris. Captain, Carter said, his tone urgent. We've detected an Alliance heavy cruiser under attack by a heavily armed ship and a group of destroyer analogs. They won't last long. Moretti turned to her executive officer, Commander Boone. Engage the destroyers with missiles. Cluster munitions. Aye, Captain. Boone nodded and relayed the order. Tactical, target the destroyers. Prepare missile strike. Cluster munitions. Missiles ready, Ramirez confirmed. Fire, Boone ordered. The missile launchers on the Excalibur sprang to life, unleashing a volley of projectiles that streaked through the void. Moments before impact, the missiles separated into multiple warheads, each targeting a specific point on the destroyers. The first destroyer's shields flared and failed under the impact of the initial warhead, leaving its hull vulnerable to the remaining detonations. It erupted into a fiery explosion. The second destroyer suffered a similar fate, its shields failing as the cluster munitions tore through its armor, leaving nothing but fragments. Destroyers neutralized, Boone reported. Moretti's gaze shifted to the battleship attacking the Alliance cruiser. Focus fire on the larger vessel. Forward plasma cannons. Fire when ready. The Excalibur's massive forward plasma cannons charged, their energy levels rising as the crew worked to align the beams. Target locked, Ramirez called out. Fire, Moretti commanded. The forward plasma cannons emitted concentrated beams of energy that lanced through the battleship's shields and hull with devastating precision. The enemy ship hung in space for a brief moment, its structure splitting apart in eerie silence before a massive explosion consumed it. Target destroyed, Boone reported. Moretti nodded. Good work, everyone. Helm, continue advancing. Tactical, weapons free. Engage all targets of opportunity, order by range. Across the Excalibur's hull, artillery turrets and Gatling cannons came to life, firing relentlessly at smaller enemy ships that dared to approach. The tide of battle had shifted. The once overwhelming enemy fleet was now scrambling to regroup. With the Excalibur spearheading the charge, the Alliance fleet began to push back. Captain, Carter reported, enemy fleet movement suggests they're going on the defensive. Their formations are breaking. Moretti allowed herself a rare smile. Then we press the advantage. Keep coordinating with the Alliance ships. Prioritize targets that threaten their heavy cruisers. As the battle raged on, the Excalibur continued to dominate the battlefield, its powerful weapon systems working in concert to destroy enemy ships and protect the Alliance fleet. The battlefield was still alive with flashes of weapons fire, but the intensity had diminished. The enemy fleet began falling back in a coordinated maneuver, regrouping around a larger vessel that dominated the holographic display on the Excalibur's bridge. Captain Moretti leaned forward, studying the display. Carter, what do we know about that ship they're rallying around? Carter adjusted the display, isolating the massive vessel. It's a command and control ship, Captain. Larger than any of their battleships, heavily armed, and likely coordinating their fleet's movements. They're not retreating, they're regrouping. Moretti nodded. Boone, get me a status report on our fleet. What's the Alliance's position? Boone scanned his console. The Alliance ships are holding formation behind us, Captain. Several are heavily damaged, and they've started emergency rescue and repair operations. But their fleet is rallying behind the Excalibur. They're looking to us for leadership. Moretti's jaw tightened. Understood, Navarro. Keep us on a steady advance. Let's hold their attention while the Alliance gets their ships back in the fight. Captain Moretti turned to Ramirez. Gunnery status? Ramirez straightened, his voice steady. Broadside plasma cannons are at full capacity, Captain. Forward plasma cannons took some strain in the last engagement but are still operational. Gatling cannons and turrets are ready and standing by. No issues on our end. Good, Moretti replied. Lynn, what's our power situation? Chief Engineer Lin's voice crackled over the comm. Main reactor is stable, Captain. Secondary systems have some minor fluctuations, but nothing critical. Repairs are in progress. We're combat ready, but I'd prefer not to push her too hard without some downtime. Noted, Moretti said, turning to Boone. And the crew? Boone checked his report. We've got some injuries, but nothing severe. The medbay is handling them efficiently. Morale remains high, especially after the last engagement. The crew knows we're making a difference. Moretti allowed a small nod. Excellent. Keep me updated. We're not done yet. The Excalibur glided forward, the Alliance fleet following close behind. Smaller vessels darted between damaged ships, providing aid where they could. On the main display, the enemy command ship loomed like a shadow over its regrouping fleet. Carter, Moretti said, her tone firm. I want a detailed scan of that command ship. What are we dealing with? Carter's hands moved swiftly over his console. Preliminary scans show reinforced hull plating, advanced shielding systems, and multiple heavy weapons platforms. Moretti's eyes narrowed. They're preparing for a counteroffensive. Boone, coordinate with the Alliance fleet. We'll need a united front to take that thing down. Boone nodded and relayed the instructions. Navarro, keep us at the forefront, but don't engage yet, Moretti continued. Carter, send the data to the Alliance command ship. Make sure they're ready for what's coming. Aye, Captain, Carter replied, his voice steady. The bridge grew quiet as the crew worked. Moretti's gaze lingered on the enemy vessel. They had managed to turn the tide of the battle, but she knew this wasn't over. The enemy was regrouping, their strength consolidating for one final stand. Boone, Moretti said, breaking the silence. Inform the Alliance. We're about to test the limits of their resolve. Let's make sure they're ready to finish this. The Excalibur held its position, the centerpiece of the Alliance fleet. The battle was far from over, but the crew stood ready, their resolve as unshakable as their ship's massive frame. The bridge of the Excalibur was tense, the crew silent but focused as Captain Moretti initiated the hail to the Alliance command ship. Her voice was calm, steady, yet resolute. Alliance Command, this is Captain Moretti of the Excalibur. Hold your position and maintain formation. We'll handle this. A moment later, the Alliance commander's voice crackled through the comms. Understood, Excalibur. The fleet will hold. Moretti turned to Boone. Prepare to broadcast on all open channels. I want the entire enemy fleet to hear this, and the Alliance as well. Boone nodded, executing her order with precision. A moment later, the communication link was active. Attention hostile fleet, Moretti said, her voice ringing out across the void. Disengage your weapon systems and power down your shields. Surrender now, or we will engage you with overwhelming force. The message hung in the air for a long, tense moment. The bridge crew exchanged glances, awaiting a response. Then, the holographic display in the center of the bridge flickered to life, revealing a creature from a species none of them recognized. Its features were angular and alien, its many eyes glowing faintly as it spoke with a guttural rasp. No surrender. The hologram vanished. Moretti's expression didn't falter. Boone, prepare a torpedo attack. Target the command and control ship. Boone snapped into action. Torpedo bay. Deploy. The Excalibur rumbled as a section of its hull extended outward, revealing several massive iris-like openings. Boone's voice rang out. Prepare a gravitic cascade warhead. Acquire the target. Ramirez, at the weapons console, responded swiftly. Target acquired. Warhead loading now. Torpedo bay standing by. Boone turned to Moretti. Captain, torpedo is ready to launch. Before Moretti could give the command, Carter's voice cut through the tension. Captain, the enemy's forward positions are advancing. Looks like they're moving to intercept. Moretti didn't hesitate. Launch torpedo. Ramirez's voice was calm but decisive. Torpedo away. On the main display, the massive torpedo, a sleek cigar-shaped weapon, emerged from its launch tube. Its guidance systems engaged, and it adjusted its trajectory slightly before its onboard engines ignited. The torpedo rocketed toward the enemy command ship, leaving a brilliant trail in its wake. "Captain," Ramirez reported, "torpedo running straight and true. Onboard navigation has calculated jump range." Boone leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the display. "How long until it jumps?" 3 seconds, Ramirez replied. On the screen, smaller enemy picket ships and fighters surged toward the torpedo, their weapons primed to intercept and destroy it. The tension on the bridge was palpable as the torpedo's countdown approached 0. The fighters closed in, weapons locked on. And then, the torpedo vanished in a brief flash of light. The bridge was silent, the crew frozen in anticipation. Moretti's gaze remained fixed on the display, her resolve unshaken. The bridge of the Alliance command ship Resolute was a hive of activity. Admiral Tarek stood at the center, overseeing the aftermath of the battle as his fleet worked to recover. The comms officer turned toward him. "Admiral, the humans are hailing us." "Put them through," Tarek said. The voice of Captain Moretti filled the bridge, calm yet commanding. "Admiral, this is Captain Moretti of the Excalibur. Hold your position and maintain formation. We'll handle this." Tarek responded without hesitation. "Understood, Excalibur. The fleet will hold." As the comms link ended, the comms officer spoke again. "Admiral, the humans are broadcasting to the enemy fleet on open comms." Tarek straightened. "Let's hear it." The bridge fell silent as Moretti's ultimatum echoed through the air. "Attention, hostile fleet. Disengage your weapon systems and power down your shields. Surrender now, or we will engage you with overwhelming force." For a moment, there was no response. Then a guttural voice replied, "No surrender." Tarek exhaled slowly, his expression hardening. "Admiral, the enemy fleet is advancing," the sensor officer reported. "Hold position," Tarek ordered. "Sir, we're getting strange readings from the human ship," the sensor officer continued. "Its hull is reconfiguring in one section." "Display," Tarek commanded. The main screen shifted to show the Excalibur. A section of its hull extended outward, revealing 3 massive ports with closed iris doors. "Detecting a power spike from the human ship," the sensor officer added. On the screen, one of the iris doors snapped open. A large, cylindrical object shot out, leaving a faint trail behind it as the iris door closed and the torpedo bay retracted seamlessly back into the hole. "Track that projectile," Tarek ordered, his voice sharp. The display shifted to follow the torpedo as it sped toward the enemy fleet. Its sleek form streaked across the void with deadly precision. "Enemy fighters moving to intercept," the sensor officer reported. The bridge crew held their breath as the enemy fighters closed in. But just as they were about to reach the torpedo, it vanished in a brief flash of light. The bridge erupted with questions. "What happened?" someone asked. "Sir," one of the officers said, eyes wide, "I think that weapon jumped to warp." A bright light began to emanate from the enemy command and control ship. It expanded rapidly, shifting and shimmering like liquid light, engulfing the enemy fleet. "Analysis," Tarek barked. The sensor officer responded quickly. "Admiral, the human weapon appears to have exited warp inside the enemy's shield perimeter. The light we're seeing is a gravity anomaly generated by the weapon, detecting increasing gravity within several kilometers of the flashpoint." The crew watched in stunned silence as the anomaly grew, pulling enemy ships closer together. As the vessels collided, explosions rippled across the fleet. Those that avoided collision began to tear apart under the immense gravitational forces. The anomaly collapsed suddenly, shrinking into a single, brilliant point of light before vanishing. In its place was a graveyard of shattered hulls and debris. Tarek stood frozen, staring at the screen. The enemy fleet, once an overwhelming force, was gone. The comms officer broke the silence. "Admiral, the Excalibur is hailing us." "Put them through," Tarek said. Captain Moretti's voice was steady and composed. "Admiral, relief and support vessels are already en route. They'll assist with rescue operations. The Excalibur needs to return to its prior mission." Tarek took a deep breath. "Captain Moretti, on behalf of my crew and the Alliance, thank you. You saved us all." "It was our honor, Admiral," Moretti replied. The comms link closed. The bridge crew watched as the Excalibur cruised past, its massive frame aligning for a warp jump. A flash of light enveloped the ship, and it disappeared, just as it had appeared to save them. Tarek stood in silence, his eyes fixed on the empty space where the Excalibur had been. Around him, his crew began to cheer quietly, the tension of the battle giving way to relief and awe.